Very last one. She left him alone.
Make a motion to accept the meeting agenda for Monday, June 25th, Selectmen's Chamber, 6 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Schedule items? None. New business director's report?
All right, so let's start off with what's been happening. So we are still in the midst of camp permitting and inspections, with inspections starting this week for camps that are opening this week. We are in second week of beach sampling. We started last week. We have several signs up at various locations that need to be adjusted or replaced because they're already missing. So I'm going to be working on that tomorrow in advance of tomorrow's sampling and Wednesday's reporting. Because we sample every Tuesday between the third week of June at each of the 6 beaches through Labor Day weekend. So we are on week 2. Results are posted through a variety of means on Wednesday. They go up on the Board of Health webpage, the town webpage, Facebook page, rec pages, email blasted if folks are signed up for email blast to the various folks that post. And then if there are any exceedances, then we post at the beaches themselves with both the little no swimmy symbol guide, as well as the big red stop signs to get people's attentions as they come off the beach. Swimming pools, we still have 1 to open. We're monitoring the bi-monthly lab samples that are submitted to us for review, and we'll continue through inspections throughout the summer. We have 3 nuisance cases now, one of which is new since the last meeting. We have an increased number of housing cases with 1 new since the last meeting. For food, we are issuing several temporary food permits each week. Heritage Days applications are being received. We haven't yet really started to review them, but Joan takes a quick pass through them, when they come in and make sure that there aren't any, glaring obvious things that we would circle on back with applicants on quickly. Farmers market, both permitting and inspections are ongoing every week. We have 14 permittees now, which is 8 more than the last time we met. So I expect that additional vendors will continue to come through the summer and we'll continue to inspect them on a somewhat regularly interval, surprise like we always do. We have several well applications in the queue. One is looking for their certificate of compliance, so I'm in correspondence with the owner about what's still needed there. And then we have revised permits being reviewed for 19 additional wells. This is the end of the fiscal year, so we're doing lots and lots of year-end, year-beginning contracts, financials, grant reports, financial accounting to balance the books from the end of this year going into the next year. So it's an awful lot of work on Joan's end, with some, particularly grants on my end. So we're trying to get all that squared away quickly. Septic, I've reviewed almost 10 as-built in the last week. There are still 3 in the queue received since the 18th. We have 3 revised plans in review received from the 7th to the 14th. And I think Joan, we received 3 plans today? So that means we've received 12 new plans between the 8th and today. Yeah, it's absolutely, it is beyond busy.
Wow.
And that's the pace that they're coming in. We have 1 less outstanding operation and maintenance contract, so we now stand at 3. And then we have 2 operations and repairs that are still needed, which is the same as the last time we met. And then I just wanted to take the opportunity, in case this is Steve's last meeting, to take the opportunity to thank him for his years of service to this board and to me in particular. You were here before me, and I appreciate all the phone calls, all the help, all the...
Maybe one more.
Maybe one more, but I didn't want to lose the opportunity. If in fact this was the last one that you were part of, I wanted to thank you for all of that you have done.
You will be missed.
Yeah, that's
That's all right. So that's what I have for director's report.
All right.
So you're moving on to conservation planning board? Selectmen.
Nominated, well.
Okay.
So, discuss septic betterment program.
Okay. So, as you recall, I gave you all a lot of paper last week, so thankfully you're not conservation in terms of worrying about paper, but I know I am a paper person in terms of being able to mark things up, make edits, make suggestions, etc. And I thought we'd take the opportunity under the assumption that it is potentially Steve's last meeting to simply take the time to brainstorm based on our meeting last time and the time that we've had in between to go over anything initial that you have found that you want me to include as we draft the policies and the application forms. Things that you see other people or other towns do that you want to include, things that you have questions about, and things that you prefer not to include, if the policies are such that you have a different way of doing it or would like to see a different way of doing it. So I'm simply going to leave it open to you for now. There's a few things through my initial review of the program that I had suggestions about, but I'll hold those momentarily.
Well, I read through a couple of them, and I didn't get through the whole stack. I'm not going to say any different. And, some of them are very simple, and some of them are quite detailed, what I've noticed. And I'm not quite in 2 weeks ready to really make too much of a comment to it. I don't think I've looked at it hard enough. Like I said, I've digested a little bit of it, but I'm getting the feel for what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there's little nuances in there that may pertain to Scituate, may not, from other towns.
That's right.
And then I just saw this one, which I'm very interested in reading, but this was the first time I saw it. And this was from our betterment program, the town of Scituate, from 1997.
Yeah, so Joan was going through the archives for another reason, and quite timely. She stumbled upon a pair of documents from the time that apparently the current board and Jennifer Sullivan were implementing the program from 20 years ago.
20 years ago, yeah.
So some of which may
So
still be.
why did that program go away?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Was it just not being used? And
I can't say. The records don't provide us with that kind of indication. But there are some things that may be relevant today, may not be relevant today based on the current guidance documents from DEP. One of the things that Joan pointed out to me that she thought was really helpful and is that there's kind of a ranking.
System.
Yeah, so there's a ranking system based on, obviously there's a limited fund base for a calendar year or a fiscal year. And some towns have determined that they will accept applications, say, twice a fiscal year, like July 1 or September 1, and then 6 months from that point. And they will rank them if you have, lots of, well, regardless of whether you have a lot of applicants or not, but they will rank them in terms of environmental sensitivity, degree of failure, a whole bunch of criteria, which, is very detailed in a checklist.
Right.
But we'll create a ranking spreadsheet so that if in fact the funds are limited and choices have to be made, that the most environmentally sensitive
Well, they must have been
systems
preparing
are.
for a overload of people coming in, so if you had 50 people coming in, you only got room for 5, you gotta weed them out somehow,
That's right.
yeah.
So a couple
And that
of
makes
towns
sense,
do that.
because I can see number 5 is eminent health hazard.
Well,
Right.
So that gets 5 points right off the bat,
Right.
and
So-
then it goes
and
down the
you only
line.
get 200,000, so if you only get 200,000, there's 5 people applying, or 6 people applying, 30-something thousand a pop, depending on the size of their system, it's gonna go quick.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
you
even,
have to be
yeah.
able to put them in a hierarchy, if you will.
Right, and these numbers, how much did we get approved for?
200,000.
200,000, so it's in line with 1997 almost, but we can change that too. Loans will be available in 2 amounts on the old one. But again, I haven't read this, I'm just literally,
Yeah,
as-
and we.
sorry to say, as we're talking, I was listening and
Yes.
a little reading.
She
through
had
it.
just discovered that in the last few days, so,
Yeah.
we figured
Good
for,
job, Sean.
I know, she's,
Nancy Drew.
that's right. So I thought it was something that we could provide to you today, and then when we circle back the next time, what, because not only is the Scituate did a ranking, but there are other towns who do a ranking now, and then they do the 2 times a year you apply. Other towns do it on a rolling basis. So there's a whole variety of ways that Scituate could implement it.
Right, right.
Mr. Gunn, is there a reason that you need, or you're here, or?
Public meeting.
Okay.
We're just asking, because you're not on the agenda, so we're just curious. If
Fine.
you have any input as to what
Let me get
is
a seat.
going on?
Yeah.
So maybe.
There you go.
Oh, I just
If you want to
came
sit
to
up
hear what
here.
was going on.
Okay. I'm not sure. She was, that's all I was gonna ask you.
I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know. Yeah, any suggestions or input?
Are the,
This is
is
the
that
time.
1997 document available to the public?
Yeah.
Sure, you can hang right now.
Thanks, Steve.
So some towns accept them on a rolling basis, some towns, provide deadlines, that way that hierarchy can be determined. If you assume, a system will cost 25 grand, you're talking about 8 systems in a fiscal year. So something to consider. As you said, there are several towns that have a very simplified approach. There are other towns that really dig into the law, severability, all of the legal ins and outs of what, the financial implications become. So it's really a matter of where you all feel is right, with community input as to what.
Mr. McLennan, have you looked at the DEP website and seen what their guidelines are?
Yes.
At all?
There was one question I saw, did I highlight it? No. Was something to the fact that, like, up to 25,000, and then it could be, you can give an additional 5 contingency. Was that a town, or is that something for the state?
So I do recall that you actually mentioned that last time, and I jotted it down as a question for us to kind of dig into to answer that for you. So I will remind myself of that question, and I'll check both the state guidelines, and then I can always call the point of contact for the program at the state to ask some of these detailed questions.
Do
So
you
that
know
we-
how many people are currently utilizing the program in the state?
No.
Is that,
I don't.
you could do the math, you could figure out the maximum amount, more or less.
Well, it depends
You
which.
know how many towns, you know how many people, the approximate price of a system.
I don't know how many towns across the Commonwealth are participating. Nor am I sure of whether every town takes
Right.
200,000 or not.
Right,
So
you might
I
have
don't know.
200,000 in the kitty, but one year they might use it all, and the next year they might not use any. You know. Yeah, and I see this, and probably because of inflation, we have the 200,000, but it seems a little minimal. It says up to 10,000 per homeowner, and up to 20,000 per homeowner, demonstrated financial need. So it's, you know.
And there's where the 20 years ago, make commitment.
Right, there's
like,
definitely
what
inflation,
costs,
so that
yeah.
number should go up. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, yeah. Materials going up and the cost of labor is going up. That's understandable.
Would we probably keep this same point system?
that's something
Yeah.
for you to think about and decide as you review both the state guidance as well as the, I don't know, maybe 8, I think we found 6, 7, 8 other towns that do it that had their stuff online for us to kind of print out and think about. Some towns, they limit it to your primary residence. There's a whole host of criteria that you could create.
Did we have anyone use
To
this when
prioritize.
we did have it? Do we know?
I would assume, and actually I can confirm that there is still at least one who is still paying
Paying.
off a betterment through the assessor's office. So yes, it was used through its last year, whenever that was.
Yeah, I think in reality, if you have 1 or 2 come through the door, it's not a big deal, but if you had a flood of 8 of them, the point system definitely would, without a question, so you have to implement it, just in case,
You run into it?
yeah, the economy slumps and things happen and residents are in need. But, yeah, I kind of like the idea of the point system, because it does, it's a first come, first served, but if somebody's not in an environmentally sensitive area, but I guess there's other ways to,
And Joan.
gotta help out the one that's gonna be polluting the public water supply before the one that's not.
Right. I mean, the difficult thing, I think, for homeowners is that you have to produce a failed Title V inspection report to participate. You have to have confirmation that it's a failed system.
Right,
So by doing that, you put yourself on that 2-year timeline.
right.
So you're having faith that you're going to be able to participate if your financial need is so great. But if there are, 15 applicants and you have a ranking system and you're, number 9 and we can only take 8, I think it's a tough balance for residents and a board to figure out how to make that determination as to who gets loans and who doesn't.
Right, unfortunately, that's a bridge that hopefully doesn't have to be crossed.
Which is why I think several communities, and apparently Scituate years ago, came up with that system.
No, it makes sense, especially like I say, if it gets flooded.
Anyone else have any questions?
And on a blind evaluation, what's the definition of blind evaluation? Is that just the point system with no names or addresses?
That's right. So you take, so somebody who is, so in essence, you would decide, who participates. So Joan or I would put together the review package of the plan, and this ranking sheet. And you would decide, based on the ranking sheet or whatever other criteria the program implements, you would decide blindly, so you wouldn't know that Mr. Smith and Miss Jones are both vying for a spot. All you would see is the
The ranking
system
system.
and the point system and the criteria, so that you can make an unbiased decision as to which system should be funded first.
Gotcha.
I think that was the idea behind it.
The popularity of political motives. If it works right.
Right, if it works right, it's, you look at the system, you don't know what's involved beyond the system itself and the location. So I'm happy to, start drafting bones, similar to how I had done with the private well regulations. It's kind of to me, it's a similar process where you review, the examples that you have, provided to us. I can put together the bones of a policy and an application form, etc. But I'll need, obviously, yes, I really like this, no, I don't really like that, or these are the questions, please answer them, so that we can include A, B, or C, whatever ideas you have.
All right.
Do you have any idea what the average cost of a system is? I mean, we don't, as an agent, it really doesn't matter to you. As a board, it really doesn't matter to us, unfortunately. But it doesn't of cost.
So,
You need it put in the ground right, you need inspections on certain dates, and clean material, and what it costs doesn't matter. If you got a deal, you got a deal. Good for you. If you paid through the nose, well, it doesn't matter. So we don't know what an average system is in Scituate.
well, I can give you a decent range.
Mhm.
So decent range is 15 to 45.
15 to 45. Is 15 to 45 soup to nuts? That's Perk engineering,
Plans and install.
Perk plans and install, and that's all the meetings, that's the engineer going to everything, doing this Board of Health meetings, this conservation meetings, that's everything, soup to nuts. 15 to 45. I mean, that seems reasonable to me.
Anecdotally, I think so.
Yeah.
Because you have, the basic gravity system, no maintenance contracts, the very basic.
2-minute material.
That's right. Simple in the ground, not a whole lot of extras.
Right, 15 grand, boom.
Right, and then you can have, the septic system on a small lot, it needs IA, it needs treatment, it needs a ton of variances, it needs to come before you,
Right.
all of that adds up, you get the, the special technology, which costs more, so you're talking pumps and alarms and electricians and all that kind of stuff, then you're
Well, that's all
climbing to
hidden costs
45,
that
right.
most people don't think.
Right,
It's-
and you're
it's-
climbing to 45.
Right.
And I think that's where the importance of the estimates come in, so that as part of the package, you see, here's the engineering costs, here's the proposals for the installs. I believe in most, if not all examples we've read, the homeowner picks the installer, but if let's say, for example, the installer's cost for, our 15,000 for one installer, 20,000 for another, and 40,000 for the third, and they pick the 40,000, I think it kind of allows you to ask questions as to why this one is so much more by having the quotes.
I mean, I'm a proponent of the middle bid. I've always said the low bid always seems to be the one that's really needs the job, and the middle guy's usually the high guy is so busy that
He's hoping he doesn't get it.
I'll take it if you pay me.
Or for whatever reason, they feel as though their costs are more, maybe they travel from, greater distance,
Right.
so they have to factor in those costs.
So that's it. The low bid's not necessarily the best. But that's something we're gonna have to think about too.
Yep.
So basically then, if there's no other questions, we'll move on and then do it in July. Or we do get questions after we do more reading,
Yeah,
email
so
to you.
absolutely. If you have questions or things that you like, things you don't like, things you want to see us to include or not include, send me emails as you think of them and as you see them, and I'll create kind of that punch list. And then we'll do more details, just like we did for the well regulations. We'll do more at the next meeting, which will be the 16th.
Yeah.
Because we go 3
We're gonna
weeks,
boil it
3
down.
meetings. Right, really dig in.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to read through this. You have not too much here to read, but.
All right. So next thing would be discuss vote Board of Health fee schedule.
Alright, so I've provided you,
Why do you want to go so much for the purpose?
What's up?
Why do you want to go so much up on the permits?
Well, it's not necessarily a matter of going up, I don't think, if I find the right sheet. So let me orient you to the package, and then I'll circle back, if you don't mind, Steve, to that question, just so you can see what I've given you. So the working sheets are these 11 by 17. So I had given you a couple of these last time as a starting point. And you'll see them just kind of labeled at the top. There's multiple pages for food, there's septic, there's others. And it's really the working spreadsheet in terms of the comparisons that we've done for current fees and structure of the way we do it currently, plus 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 other towns. And see where we fit in, see where we might make to revisions, etc. Then I've given you a copy of our current fee schedule, which is right up here, 8.5 by 11. As well as this, which I think is kind of the summary Bible, where it provides the type of fee in the left-hand column. The middle column is the proposed fee, and then the right-hand column is what is the change, both in terms of type of evaluation or type of fee, and the dollar value change. So to go to your question,
This is what you said today.
yes. So currently, the way the perk testing is done, and it's not done like this in any other community, is that we have a non-refundable application fee of $40. Then we charge $70 an hour. And you have to pay up front for 4 hours. So it's $320 that an applicant is paying up front for a perk test. If additional hours are needed, so let's say another 2 hours are needed, we go back to the engineer. We ask the engineer for 2 hours worth of work. We log in those 2 additional hours at $140, and we're good. The way all communities that we evaluated are doing it is a flat rate. So it covers our perk witnesses' time up to 40 hours, and it covers our administrative time. So instead of paying $320 for the half day, you're paying $300 for the half day. But there's not the administrative back and forth of who gets what refund, who doesn't get a refund, whether our perk witnesses charge 2 hours or 4 hours to refund $70. So it's turning it into a flat fee and a slightly less fee.
Now, is that a non-refundable fee?
So now all of these fees are non-refundable.
Okay.
The hours.
And then the clock ticks after 4 hours.
So if you spend 4 hours, you're paying for 4 hours. If you're spending 3 hours, you're paying for 4 hours. Kind of like a police detail.
No, I get it,
Yeah.
4-hour minimum and that's it,
And then if you spend 7 hours, you're paying for 8 hours. If you spend 8 hours, you're paying for 8 hours.
So it's 4-hour increments.
4-hour increments. The administrative time spent.
It almost gets, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
That's okay.
but It's almost like, when does the engineer charge it? Does he charge it when he leaves the office in the morning or until when he shows up on site? When's his 4 hours start?
The witness.
Yeah.
So the witnesses can charge, whether they do or not. They can charge their travel time. They can
Okay.
They can't charge mileage, but they can charge their travel time.
No, but if their day
site
starts at
time,
7
and their
then-
report time.
Right, the perk test is at 7:30, it takes me a half hour to get there, that's fine, no argument there, I'm not sure if I like the 4 to 8 hour jump, because what happens if the thing runs till 12:05 and he was there for 5 minutes or whatever?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, that's a hit, that's like, holy mackerel, that's,
Well, we don't, I mean, we've never seen a 4.2.
4 hour minimum, I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, we've never seen somebody say 4.25, we've never had a witness come in and say, I'm gonna charge 4.25 hours.
Even 5
It's 2
hours.
hours, 3 hours,
Even
4
5
hours,
hours.
that kind of thing.
Even 5 hours, you know, even 5 hours to get charged for 8. It's almost like an hour minimum after that. If you run over, it turns into an hour, you know, instead of doing to me, I just
Sometimes those details aren't good.
with that.
They work 4 hours, if they work 4 hours and 10 minutes,
Yeah.
they pay them for 8.
Yeah.
And 10 minutes is costing you money.
I'd like to see a critical violation. Not just $10 for each 30 days late,
What do you mean?
or inspection fees.
So reinspection fees would go from 75 to 100.
Yeah.
And then for every 30 days that they're late, it would be another $10. This is, hey, this is your decision.
Right.
This is just
No,
an
I get it.
Can
analysis.
you make this my legacy tonight?
Yeah, but do we want to work through this, like, right down the line and?
Makes sense to
What we
me.
like, what we don't?
Yep. Makes
That's
sense
how
to me.
it's
Instead of maybe,
you know, jumping.
yeah,
That's fine.
and,
All right, so we'll work on this.
but I mean, that's my take on that. I don't mind the 4 hour minimum, and if the engineer leaves the office and that's when his clock starts ticking, because he knows when the thing is and how long it takes him to get there. If the park's not till 10 in the morning because you need high tide, you're at the beach, and he leaves at 9:30, that's fine. The clock starts at 9:30, you get 4 hours, but I don't like the 4 to 8 hour jump. I just don't. We're, I don't know. You gotta cover your administration costs, you gotta cover your costs for the engineer, but I think that is a gouge, and I don't think we're here to gouge. My own opinion. In the 1 hour, if it takes a half hour, you charge an hour. I don't think anybody's gonna nitpick over that. I think the 4 to 8, yeah.
So you want to do 4, 6, and 8? Do 4, 6, and 8? Or do you
I'd
want
much rather that, the 4, 6,
6,
or
and 8?
could you do a 4, 5, 6? And that just,
Well, it's just $75 an hour, isn't it? 75? No,
oh yeah,
70.
I'd go 4, 6,
No,
8.
300 for a half a day, that's 75 an hour.
our perk witnesses get $70 an hour?
Right.
And there's a very small administrative fee
Right.
for all that we do associated with coordinating
Right.
and following up on payment. So the administration fee goes down. So if you want to look at the
So in 4 hours, the
witness gets $280.
280 and the town's only making 20, which really doesn't cover your fee.
But again, we don't, as you said, we don't want to gouge.
No, I
So-
know that, but that
But
doesn't
it
seem.
also gives the opportunity.
That doesn't seem the office could do an hour's worth of work and get paid $20. I mean, that we shouldn't be in the negative either. I mean, I guess there are taxes that help, but it should be self-funding. I guess I'm close to it.
I'm trying to find the perk sheet. So if you want to look at what other towns do to give you a sense. That's why these are helpful.
It's almost then where that first 4 hour fee should have a higher rate to it, and then your per hour fee after that can be less, because the per hour fee isn't really an administrative cost, because,
Well, it is, because we have to circle back with the engineer and get the additional funds to cover payment to our perk witness and process an additional PO to pay the perk witness for the additional costs. I'm trying to find that perk sheet.
So,
So the other thing is, so if you go to the perk sheet, which I'm sorry they're not numbered.
it's out after camps, I think.
Yep, it's right after camps. So it's 2 pages long. Yeah, it's 2 pages long, with a whole variety of systems. Some provide them based on New construction versus a repair, residential versus commercial,
Yeah, I get that, the new construction versus repair, I mean, I get all that, but I guess it's a big picture. That's why I was gonna say, almost in my own mind, it's like if you come up with a little higher number on the first 4 hours and then just do the 74-hour clock after that.
Well, the reason that we didn't do it that way is because most perk tests occur within the first 4 hours. So if somebody accomplished their perk test in 2 hours and 4 hours, they're not paying a ton. You know, they're paying, you know, the smaller base fee, as opposed to paying $320, they're paying $3.
Right.
So it's usually the rare, it's more rare to see them go over 4 hours.
I guess on new construction it does. Well, it doesn't matter, actually. I mean, some lots, the soils are so bad, they have 40 minutes an inch.
But repairs, remember, are only 2 holes.
Right.
So you can run both holes at the same time.
Right,
Most
get one
engineers-
shot and take the
right,
next one,
right.
get going,
So-
half hour later.
Yeah, so even most repairs, Joan, correct me if I'm wrong, but most perk tests are completed within the first 4 hours, unless you're doing, you know, a subdivision. And at that point, it's, you know, 4 hours, you know, a half day or a full day, depending on how long they're out there and how many holes they get done. So most of them are accomplished within the first 4 hours. So that's why we kept the first 4 hours down. But we can certainly do them, you know, at an hourly interval beyond the first 4.
No,
That's
I
fine.
don't, no, I think that's fine.
Do you want to throw in a 6 hour or no? Just leave it 4-8?
We could do 6 hours at 450, kind of in the middle. And that way there's a middle between the first and the second 8.
Yeah, that makes
That's
a little
what I
more
was-
sense to me. Yeah, I'll compromise with that.
Okay.
Instead of doing per hour, and then, yeah,
So it's something kind of in the middle.
kind of, yeah.
Alright, so let's do, so one revision is add in 450 for up to 6 hours.
That's 600 for the full 8
And
hours.
600 for the full day. Okay.
Anyone?
I'm fine with almost.
Yeah, I didn't, when I was looking at it earlier, I didn't see much. And
No.
I'm okay with everything. I'm stuck in some of the food stuff.
Okay.
So I see that you changed the low risk, medium risk, high risk, same as Milton does. That's the change from seat limit to risk level. So, but there's really no difference there, right? You just play the numbers game?
Well, no, I mean, so the way we currently, have our fees established is based on number of seats. So you'll see in the 2017 fees, that are kind of hanging out the top of your package up there. It's currently based on fees. So there are some, or based on seats. So there are going to be some folks who are going to pay more based on their risk level versus their size. And there are some folks that are going to pay less. So for example, you know, the very large establishments that currently get charged the maximum number of seats plus X number of dollars per additional seat. Instead of, for example, paying $430.22 or $573,
So you just have a tier.
it becomes $400 based on what you're serving, and in theory, it becomes based on your level of risk, and in theory, to the extent at which inspections would occur too, right? So if you're low risk, the
Okay.
inspections are gonna be easier, you know, permitting should be easier, there's a lot
Right.
less paperwork.
Smaller kitchen, smaller.
Mhm.
catering,
But no bones about it, there are definitely some people who will be paying more because they're in a small space, but they're serving very high-risk food.
Yeah. You might get a little pushback on that. And as I see this one, pumping hall license too, you know, we've had a tough time sometimes getting these guys to actually get their pumping hall license and/or records. Do we not want to put something in there for not getting their records in on a timely manner?
Well, so my feeling with that is, and again, it's all up to you, my feeling with that is, if they don't provide records, they come spend time before you and you can pull their license. That to me is a little bit more important than us sending out yet more fees and
Okay.
that kind of thing.
Okay.
Have they gotten better?
Yes.
Important?
Yep, they have gotten better.
And the annual permit late fee, I know that that's always a problem, is getting people to get their permits in. So, $50?
So we kept it the same with the recognition that for some people, this would be an adjustment and the cost of the permit itself would go up. So we figured that with the cost of the reinspection going up, we would leave the one-time late fee the same.
Okay. Okay. And then the other one I was talking about was the reinspection fee. I see some of the other ones as per critical violation.
And that to me might be a little extreme. You know, if we walk in, or, you know, if the inspector walks in and sees 5 critical violations, that's, yeah, I mean, sure, it's gonna be a, you know, put on notice that you need to be doing what you're supposed to be doing at all times. But that might be a little much, I think.
Well, you and Nellie know better than we do, you know, the repeat offenders with their critical violations. And the way to stop that is by implementing, implementing some sort of critical violation fee like half the other towns have. Yeah, no, maybe not.
And it's certainly an option. I mean,
I mean, it might get them to really understand that it's important too.
Well, it's just the habitual offenders, do you know what I mean?
Right.
Almost to me, it's like, and I know I've been through this before, but restaurant gets inspected, nobody knows the inspector's coming, it's kind of, yeah, they come.
mhm.
Inspector goes in, does their job and says, okay, you've got major, 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 minor, minor, minor. I'll be back on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Here's your paperwork, have it fixed. I think whatever we've been doing there seems to work. If they come back and say, that major's repeated, then I think that's the time that should be a charge. Yeah.
Okay, so that's still considered a critical violation, or the reinspection fee is nothing right now. So when they'll just go back a week later, they'll whack them for $75. Jim, what's the percentage of going back a week later that people still have the same violations?
Very rare.
Yeah, because
Do they
they're
find
warned.
something else?
Right, so they know when
So when
Nellie's
Nellie
coming
goes-
back.
Right, but when Nellie goes back, does she reinspect everything, or she just reinspect the critical violations?
She just looks for the critical violations. If she sees something else, she's certainly not going to turn a blind eye to it. But the whole point of the reinspection is that they've fixed whatever needed to be fixed the last time during the routine inspection. So if the glass washer's not working, it better be working. You know, if your temperatures and your coolers weren't working, that they're fixed. You know, or if your racks are growing mold and are rusty, that they have been removed, cleaned, repaired, and no longer creating a hazard.
Yeah.
So I think it's rare that she has to go back a second time for the same thing.
Yeah, the third time, usually before the board, and you don't see that
No.
happen ever.
That hasn't happened since I've been here, where she has gone back 2 times for the same thing and it's not being fixed. I think what we see a little more often is, let's say a routine inspection is in February, and she'll see a critical violation. It'll get addressed by her re-inspection's done, we go back 3 months later or 4 months later, that's when we see the same violation. And I'll use, for example, the ice machine is dirty. You know, where it's this, that's where the quote-unquote repeat offender comes in, where they have the same thing at a subsequent routine inspection.
Would we want to do,
I don't know.
I mean, I think that's fine, going to the 100, but I'm wondering if we should put something in the clause, like you said. You know, if I come in today and the ice machine's dirty, and I come back 4 months, you come back a week later, you fixed it, I come back 4 months later or 6 months later and the ice machine's dirty again. I mean, it's the same,
Same violation.
same violation. I think something charged on that, because again, those are critical. I mean, that could really, a dirty ice machine could really hurt, not only your business, but, you know, the health of someone.
So, if I'm hearing right, you would propose to add something like, if one or more critical violations, and we would maybe limit it to critical,
Yeah.
up to you. If one or more critical violations are identified in 2
Consecutive.
consecutive routine inspections, there would be an
Gotcha.
additional fee of X. Do I have that right?
Mhm.
So then what we would need to do is we would need to look at, when, let's say Nellie has her May inspection list, we would need to pull the records from February, see where the overlap is, and then add that additional cost.
Mhm.
What's this next one, the label one, that's at the TA and Board of Selectmen?
Does that, I just didn't interrupt myself, does that create too much burden on the office going back, and was it pretty easy? to
It's a
look?
little more work. We have to go back into the hard copies. It's
I mean,
definitely
good.
more work.
I mean, could it be effective next round? Or would you want to go back to when she did one in April or whatever?
Oh, no, you make it effective when these increases.
Right.
Yeah, so this, so.
So
in-
starting in July, any inspection she does,
So it
that's
would
our
be,
list.
yeah, so it
6
would be
months from
starting
then.
in July.
6
Right.
months from then. Let me start switching subjects, let me ask you this, the rental property inspections by housing bylaw and determined by the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen.
That's the language from the bylaw.
Why though?
That's the language from the bylaw as adopted at town meeting.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm asking why.
I don't know, I wasn't here when the bylaw was adopted. So I think the idea of it is that it keeps it open such that, you know, if the Board of Selectmen revises things, it keeps our fee
Right.
schedule current. For whatever reason, the previous fee schedule said $50, I have to go back and figure out where that $50 came from, to find out what the actual current dollar value is. But in terms of, being consistent with the language of the bylaw, that's why I made that change.
So we're voting on this tonight, or we want to go back and make changes in the middle of next meeting?
Well, I think, we could either do voted and just with follow revisions.
But, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think the idea was, to go through, you know, if those are the only ones, all of you have comments, questions,
Well, a
or
lot of the
changes
stuff- A lot
on.
of the stuff we don't know, I mean, I just don't know what's involved, but I'm trusting that your increases are, you know, market correction, if you will. You know what I mean?
There's some things that are new, you know, for example, on the first page, plan review, which I would move to the bottom of that section as opposed to putting it above, physically above all of the
Yeah.
plan reviews. But in essence, where it says plan review, revised plan beyond one revision with the same Board of Health comments provided. Many towns have adopted something like this so that the agent isn't reviewing the same plan 6 times over and making the same comments over and over and over again. It puts the onus on us sending out the comments, engineer actually reviewing our comments, making all the appropriate revisions to those comments, which then limits the number of times we review it,
Yeah.
speeds up the process for the homeowner.
That should have been on there for a while ago.
So that's saying they give you a plan, you make comments, and then they give you a plan back and they didn't do your comments?
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
And that happens routinely.
Okay,
That should have been on there a while ago.
I can see that turning into an argument, but it's legitimate. If you didn't do what we asked you to do, why didn't you do it? I gave you a punch
Because
list
she's
to
gonna
do
get
it.
called out that the thing's taking too long, or somebody's gonna go to the selectman's office and say, why is my plan taking 30 days?
Right.
And she can go back and say, well, you know what, we asked XYZ engineer to make this change, the next revision didn't have the changes, or the changes were wrong, or you just ignored them. So, I mean, it covers them, and it puts a little more pressure on the engineers to do it, you know?
Right.
Okay. So when she makes, 5 corrections, and I don't know the way you keep them back, do you just do it right on the plan, is that what you do?
I send the engineers an email
So you send everything.
with the punch
so-
list.
Yeah, so everything is there, so 4 days later, when she gets that big plan, I mean, it should be.
And the comments are detailed, like, for example, I sent comments out today. Please review and revise the as-built tie between corner C and septic tank in.
I wouldn't
So
expect anything
I'm
other than-
telling them what to look at, not, please review your profile.
Right.
Well, what does that mean?
I bet you some health agents do
So-
that.
Well, that's it. That's
Right,
kind of
so
needle
they're
in a
deep-
haystack,
yeah.
right? They look at the plan so many
Well, I
times.
bet you some health agents
I get
do
that.
Right.
Just answer that.
Yeah.
So I give them that specific punch list.
Right.
So it's hopefully easier for everybody.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with that one either. I just, and then if you found something new on the plan, because you looked at it in a different
Then
light.
that's on me.
That's on you.
That's on
And I
me.
agree with that
Yep.
too. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. No, okay, as long as that's written in a way that, it's the whole thing of us communicating this here as 4 individuals, 3 members and the agent, but it's 10 years from now when somebody looks at that and says, what do they mean? Trying to interpret it, so it's, it makes sense to us today. I just want to make sure it makes sense to somebody 10 years from now. What do they actually mean by that? I just hate to see the argument, we charge people. Understand
wanna-
why they
yes.
came up with that.
Yeah,
An explanation, that's all. It's
do
always.
you want to revise the explanation? Because right now it's plan review, revised plan beyond one revision
Right.
with same Board of Health comments provided.
Oh, it's perfect, that's exactly what it is. What's the fee now on their zone?
$100.
Oh, yeah, that works somebody out. How often does that happen?
Frequently.
That works somebody out.
I mean, it has, so we,
Hey, listen, time is money, you wanna know time is money to everybody, so.
we did implement a checklist both for plan reviews and as-bills that the engineers need to submit, i.e., yes, I did this, I did this, I did this, all of these things are on the plan. That has helped. So that has cut down in most instances the number of revisions. I'm not reviewing the same plan 5 and 6 times. I'm now reviewing the same plan 2 and 3 times. So it's, the checklist alone has cut down on things. But there still are, I'll send 12 comments out on the initial plan. I'll get a revised plan back and only 6 of them are addressed. So I have to send,
Yeah, I
so
get
it
it.
still happens.
Yeah.
But it's happening a little less frequently, which is excellent for everybody.
Well, after we put this, it'll happen even less.
And hopefully that's the case. A lot of our neighbors do it, and they've had good results, because it does, it makes people pause and double check their own work.
Of course, that's what they should. It's important stuff.
And And just like us, we don't necessarily catch everything the first time around, so no reason to penalize a homeowner or an engineer for something we don't catch the first time.
No,
Hence
right,
the
but
same
you
comments.
caught it
Right.
and said, yeah, fix it. And then if somebody doesn't,
So-
they possum or they're just not doing their job.
So we want to do the motion? The
Well,
the only
there-
thing I had was the perk test, changing the 6 hours to 450. And then, do we want to come up with a reinspection fee on critical that happens 2 in a row? That was the only 2 I saw, right?
Yeah, I think so. I didn't really,
So what's all I want to do?
So if I can just kind of stop you for 1 second.
Yep.
So you'll see, for the septic, I've removed the additional charges for innovative alternative technology use and X number of variances is XYZ fee. I think it's overly cumbersome, really doesn't change the review that I conduct or, an engineer on behalf of the Board of Health conducts. It's the same level of review, so I've removed those fees. So for a residential home, it's, if I can find it, it's $250 as opposed to a range of $150 to $325. And I'm bringing this up because this is the most common type of plan we review, is the residential plan, single family. We looked at the average cost in the last year, and the average cost from the range of $150 to $325 was $248. So for a lot of folks, the fee will go down from the $325 to $250. I think it makes it a lot more simple for the engineers to figure out. It's easier for them to explain to their homeowner.
just charge it.
Yeah, and less back and forth with us saying, oh, you owe us $75 because you didn't include the variance fee. I think it just makes it easier, so I wanted to bring your attention to that. The other things I wanted to bring your attention to for septic is, we've added for shared systems, condos, mixed use, we've added a flow component. So smaller systems for plan review would cost less than giant, systems for, large multi-use condos plus a restaurant underneath and 5 offices and all of that, where you have to really dig into all the design flow. So we've tried to tier it based on mixed use and flow to capture both of those, which are rare that we see, but, may happen.
Well, wasn't that kind of the way it was before? It was, they almost looked the same. It was $200 flat fee plus $50 per unit. It says house, but I'm assuming they meant per unit.
Yeah, I tried to kind of take into account smaller and less time versus let me count up the units and come up with a total number. So I think the flow accounts for a number of units in some ways.
Sure, they're 20 gallons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, that's per day per bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah, it equates it to the septic, I guess, yeah. Yeah, because it would be more flow than, right.
And counting up units and bedrooms and all that kind of stuff. And then you'll see, like, the other septic-related fees, those are unchanged. The food-related one, Steve hit on the big change.
So do we come up with a fee for that?
The reinspection?
Yeah.
That was one thing I was saying about that. Per critical.
I'm assuming that's the fee for repeat offender.
So he has one,
So the first time he fixes it, it's okay.
right.
Well,
But
You're
then
paying
the
a
next-
reinspection fee, but not getting whacked. If you come back, like you said, 2 or 3 months later, and all of a sudden, boom, they reappeared again, well, guess what?
But do we want to do it for that critical or each critical?
I think
would
it
say
would be
it'd
for the,
each.
I would say it would be for the same critical. So
The
using,
same critical, but
Right.
it could be 3 or 4 criticals if they had them, and if they repeated 3 or 4, so if you had, you know,
so that's a lot of figuring out for us.
yeah.
What
The thing
I,
is, how would I way I'm interpreting it the way you thought? If you
That's-
had a dirty
that's what
ice
I was
machine
wondering.
And you got it 3 months later, then, yeah, you're doing bad $50 if you weren't washing your hands or cutting on a board without washing it, and you did it again 3 months later, then that's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
a fine for each one, I guess, that's the way to put it.
but is that time consuming or
So-
controlling or?
so let me make sure I understand what you're suggesting. So we go into Mama's Pizza Shop and in February. And Mama's Pizza Shop has 3 critical violations. We charge them the $100 for the reinspection fee. Food inspector goes back a week later. All good.
Yep.
Food inspector goes 3 months later to the same Mama's Pizza Shop. And of those 3 critical violations that she saw in February, she saw 1 again, the same one again, and 4 new ones
Okay.
that she didn't see in February. So at that second routine inspection,
$50 fine.
it would be $100 for a reinspection because the food inspector comes back for a reinspection.
Right.
And then $50 more for the
That
one
that's-
that's in consecutive routine inspections.
Right.
I have that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, if 3 and 3, it would be 150.
If they're the same 3 in February and the same
Same three
3 months
months
later, it would be
150.
Right,
150.
so it's back
Got
to
it.
back. All right, now, you go on a stretch here, what happens if it's a triple?
Ooh.
So what do? You
Drive
all
it.
that.
I would say you have them come in.
Yeah.
But that could be
That's what I would
3,
say.
6, 9 months later.
So then, okay, so we're in May.
So then there's a problem.
Right.
Then they're gonna come in.
So I think, so I,
Understood, but we don't have any track of that today, you know what I mean?
Now he does.
Well,
Well, she does, but once it's fixed and it goes away. We don't keep track that it might happen
that's right,
all right.
every
Right.
time.
So-
Now we're keeping track of that.
right.
Once
so
it's
in
fixed,
May-
it's over, it's over, you know what I
Right.
mean? It's done, it's forgotten,
But
it's,
Nellie knows what
we
the
move on, it's
violations
water
are.
under the bridge.
Well, I don't think she has no, well, so, I mean, so Nellie conducts,
Yes, she does.
I'm sure she knows in her head which ones she sees over and over at the same
I
establishments.
guess we should
but-
ask, what is Nellie's plan? Because everybody keeps saying that she's leaving.
Nellie will retire when Nellie is ready to retire, and
Okay.
she has not made that decision.
Well, that's personal business.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think I think what you're saying would still hold. So we've come back in May, so, and I'm gonna stick with my one example. That one that you saw in May, which you also saw in February, you now see in September. You get charged that $50 because it happened in May. Not because it happened in February, but because it happened in May. It's your
Correct.
2 consecutive.
Correct.
And if it's now 3 consecutive, they come here. As opposed to dealing with different fee structures, I would say, hold your system of consecutive,
Almost
but
to
have
me
them
that it
come
seems
in.
it's $100 fine, and you come before the board. Coming before us doesn't cost us anything but a night out.
True. It's up to you.
Inconvenience.
It's up to you how you want to do it. Because either way, the tracking is the same for us. Because we'll now have to start tracking what happens in February, what happens in April, or, what happens in February happens in May, and then May to whatever. So it would be a slightly different tracking system for us.
Yeah, you have to go back through the file and see, and then once they get a clean thing, then it cleans the slate, boom,
Right.
clean the slate again.
Right.
I don't know how often that happens, because we've never kept track of it. I mean, mentally, you might say, yeah, this restaurant might have a problem because, whoever's mopping the floor doesn't mop under a certain area, or,
And
That's something I can almost go every 6 months and say, hey,
Yeah. And I think Steve captured that. Nellie knows certain things to key in on because this,
Certain establishments.
repeat perspective on things.
Right.
But she certainly isn't gonna remember, in February I saw this, in August I saw that, so that would be up to us.
So,
I mean, I just see it that way. It wouldn't seem right to say, okay, on the third offense, you get a free ride, you just get a trip before the board. But although no restaurant wants to sit in here because it is public and televised, and at that point, names get mentioned and they know which establishment's sitting here. And that's not, no, I'm definitely not in the business of wanting to do that. That could hurt somebody, not unless they were okay.
so do you want to make a motion on those? I mean, I don't know if
Well-
any other ones.
So,
You have others.
so let me, if you don't mind, I'll just kind of run through. So, food related, you know, the risk level is the kind of big change there. Temporary food permits, we revised it a little bit to capture single day versus multiple day. And then we lowered the cost for the temporary food permits for nonprofits, doing a single day, multi-day thing. And then small incremental changes for things like annual catering license goes from 75 to 100. Same thing, B&Bs and residential kitchens go from 50 to 75. You know, small incremental changes. Doesn't cover cost of inspections, but it's a little more in line with what others are doing. And administrative time. Mobile carts, we are seeing a lot more food trucks coming to town. So raising that fee is pretty critical. You know, the time spent permitting and doing inspections for those is becoming more cumbersome as they come to town more frequently.
How does that work? I gotta ask, I'm sorry, I gotta put a stop on that one. So if guy comes in, lady comes in, couple comes in, doesn't matter, whatever, they come in from out of town. They come to town hall, they get a permit to do business in the town of Scituate. Do you, or a food inspector, physically go out and look at the truck? Or do they get certified by the state where they have a thing,
It's
or?
not, no, the state doesn't inspect mobile food truck, it's all left up to the locals.
So if they wanna do business here, then
They
they
come and get permitted by us.
get permitted, but does anybody inspect that truck? Does anybody,
So, yes.
I know, like, when the carnival, I guess, was in town,
Yeah,
things
we
get
inspect.
checked.
We inspect, yep.
Yeah.
So we inspect at all large events. We inspect carnival, we inspect, regardless of day of week. We inspect carnival, we inspect heritage days and fall for Scituate and any other large weekend event. Those are the big three. We also inspect all annually licensed mobile trucks, typically twice. I mean, if they're season, you know, if they come in May and they leave in September, we may only catch them once. But for the most part, if they are annual permittees, we'll inspect them twice.
Now, to get that permit, do they have to have a food handler's license and?
They have to have food manager's license.
Food man, okay.
Yeah, food manager, as well as allergen awareness,
Okay.
assuming that they are anything but ice cream. You know, the little ice cream, singly wrapped ice cream things, you don't need serve safe because you're not preparing food.
Right. All
But,
prepackaged.
yeah, but any of the mobile trucks that are cooking on board, serve safe or food manager certification. So yes, we inspect all annual licensees. We may not inspect every single food truck that goes to a temporary event on a Saturday. We just can't do it all the time. But we spot check as best we can.
Yeah, well, that's just the thing, if somebody comes in for one event, or they're driving through and they say, you know, Scituate looks like a great place to set up shop this Saturday, I'll get a permit Friday at 10 in the morning and
5 days. You have to have a complete permit application into us.
5 days before you work.
5 days before an event. Or
So that
we-
gives the
Gives us.
opportunity for an inspection. And, okay, no, I never really, you know, because like old gypsies, you don't know.
And there are
It's a
a
good check and
lot
balance,
more,
you
there are a
know.
lot more with,
Well, there's some popularity on TV with them, and you see it, it's pretty cool. Like,
About the city of Boston, they're all over.
all over the place.
yeah.
They pull up, they shut down and
Hundreds.
they leave.
Hundreds of permits in Boston for mobiles.
And that's it, I live on the city, and they say, I go down to the beach and
Yeah.
serve up
Oh,
some
Reeves
pizza or
doing
something.
that now.
Hmm?
Reeves doing that now, right?
I think it's the Lola Jane.
Oh, I thought Reeves was gonna do something with, Peggy.
That's
Not
Oro,
Riva.
that's Oro.
Oro.
Oro, which is the Wola Jade, that's their
Okay.
truck. So they are annually licensed truck, we inspect them a couple times a year. They typically also participate at Heritage Days, so we inspect them then, because we permit them specifically for Heritage Days. If you come to a town event, your mobile license doesn't apply, you are there for the event, so you have to apply for a temporary permit, even if you are an annual permittee, because it is a specially permitted event.
So, mobile truck like that, then, would you say Egypt Beach?
Peggy?
Hey, restrooms, employees, what do they use the porta potty that's provided?
I would assume they use a porta potty.
And hand washing?
They have a hand washing station. Typically, most of the trucks actually have a hand washing sink with hot water, paper towels.
I got
and
you, so
soap
they have
on
them
the
on,
truck.
they have it on the truck and the signs are posted, employees must use, wash hands
That's
after.
right, yeah.
So, okay, then, no, that was always a thing, you know, didn't know how big of a tank they have and, you know, they must have to fill it up every night or two.
Yeah.
Because
And
they're
then-
washing other things, including their hands, so they have to be close to restroom facilities when they operate, I'm assuming. Some sort of public thing or someone's,
Yeah. Yeah, so they all have, a true mobile food truck needs to essentially have a mini version of everything you would need to have in a restaurant. So hand washing sink, prep sink, and a way to wash utensils.
Right.
So.
right, because you cut
So
chicken one
smush it all
second,
down,
you gotta
exactly.
clean it, sanitize it, and cut your beef or whatever, yeah, no, it makes sense, I just never really asked the question, never really delved into it.
Yeah, no, and it's becoming more.
I'm sorry if I'm
fun.
dragging on, guys, it's, well, you're a food guy, so you know all this. Getting an education on the scene, on the fly. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for your patience.
No problem, no problem. So in terms of language, to go back to your subsequent or consecutive inspections, let's see if I can get this right. So it would be re-inspection fee, because remember these are fees, not fines. Re-inspection fee of $50 per critical violation,
Repetitive.
$50 per repetitive critical violation documented in 2 consecutive, we can play with this, consecutive routine inspections. So it would be a re-inspection fee of $50 per each repetitive critical violation documented in 2 consecutive routine inspections,
Perfect. Plus the regular.
plus the regular re-inspection fee to go.
In addition to that.
Okay, so we've got that change, and then the change for the
6 hours.
accreditation test witness. So it would be $300 for a half day up to 4 hours, $450 for up to 6 hours, and $600 for up to 8 hours. So do you want this to add on to
Your
your
motion?
motion?
Sure.
Mm.
Yeah, so,
Want me to make the motion? Got it in front of me?
well, I guess you probably could use that.
Yeah.
I just wrote the 2 that we were talking about.
Yeah, the work between the two. So, we're ready?
Yeah.
We're
I
good?
think so.
There was nothing else?
Nothing that I
didn't
wanted
see.
to call your
Okay.
attention to. A lot of the subsequent ones were unchanged.
Okay.
Good.
Yep.
Move to implement the updated fee schedule to become effective on July 1st, 2018 with the following revisions. Percolation test of $300 or a half day of 4-hour minimum. A 6-hour fee of $450 $50, or 6-hour minimum, I should say, and then an 8-hour minimum of $600. Number one revision. Number two revision, a reinspection fee of $50 on critical violation or repetitive, documented in 2 consecutive routine inspections.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so what we'll do on this is, we'll document, the changes, we'll clean it up, make it look nice, and get it posted, to the effective July 1.
Okay.
And then, I'm sure we'll get feedback, and the board can revisit it at any time. It doesn't have to be on an annual basis. It can be, if something pops up that, you hear about a lot or we hear about a lot, we can certainly revisit it at any time to address, a single item or multiple items that are a question or concern.
Sure.
Okay. Confusing.
Yeah.
Administrative invoice approvals.
Get your pens ready.
Uh-oh.
Oh, it's the end of the year.
It is the end of the year.
Been busy.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Time check. Blankets.
So we were given, just to give you what's going on there, we applied, so as you all know, we have an emergency preparedness grant, CDC and DPH funded through Region 4B, which is now Region 4AB. And each community through this current fiscal year was granted local allocations. There was an unspent chunk of money allocated to Region 4B. So we as individual communities were allowed to request funding for specific things above and beyond our local allocation. So we wanted to update our shelter supplies. So replacing blankets that were lost this past winter for use, adding room dividers that are great to separate dogs from non-dogs. And then replacing some of our cots that have seen better days. So all through grant funding, which was a $3,000 mini award. So that's why you're seeing those items.
Cool.
Yeah.
People,
I just did the same thing.
He's been a very big help to us this year,
As always.
as always.
The beaches were all in good shape.
First week, the beaches were fine. We had 4 beaches with results less than 10, which is the minimum laboratory analysis. We had 1 beach at 10, 1 beach at 20. A little concerned about tomorrow's sampling, given the rain we've had in the last 2 days and the surface runoff, but we'll see what happens.
Which way's the wind blowing? Offshore, I hope.
I don't know. You'd know better than me.
Actually, it was blowing onshore today. It had that feel of fall in the air. I hate to say that. It was a little easterly.
but I think it's going the other way tomorrow.
Yeah, next, I think by the end of the week and for the
Supposed to be in the
foreseeable,
90s.
it'll be 90s, yeah.
But it was rough, so that might stir it up and mix it up.
Yeah. And then because it is the end of the year, we're gonna kind of put a request in that you, at least 2 of you, can be open to visiting us for any last minute PO signings through the end of this week. So,
I give you proxy.
what's that?
I give you proxy for that.
Yeah. Yeah, if I'm around, I'll come over.
So that
Be
would be.
twice my fee.
Twice the fee, free?
Yeah, here you go, a fee of free.
The fee free.
And then I guess you